Good morning. It's Monday, September 5th, Labor Day. And today I want to talk about a serious problem that is occurring in the 90% black community of Jackson, Mississippi. It's about their water supply. It's also about environmental racism. And there are many that I know that ignore the fact that we are racist, or they choose not to believe it. In fact, I know some people who honestly think that this country is not a racist. But let me show you about the racism that has been going on for a long, long time in black communities. First of all, many, many years ago, I think maybe 40 or 50 years ago, we were still practicing redlining, where people of color could not own property in certain parts of the town because the communities wanted to stay lily white. And they called that redlining. And in Jackson, Mississippi, I believe that town resulted as redlining because the blacks had nowhere else to go. So they settled together in a town like Jackson, Mississippi. And now we have a water crisis, a Jackson, Mississippi water crisis, where the local people in that town can't get clean water. And they haven't gotten clean water for months and months. And they tell the story of a gentleman who drinks the rusty water because he has no options. Because he had a small fire in his house. And he can't even boil water. Is that any way for a citizen of the United States to live? Is that any way for a citizen and many citizens in the United States to live? In black communities, or predominantly black communities, where the water supply is not fit to drink? Where people shower with their mouths shut, where the National Guard was called out to distribute over 1 million bottles of water to these people. And many of these people don't have transportation to get to the shopping centers and buy more water. This is a poor black community. And the state government in Mississippi has ignored them for a long, long time. And why? Why have they been ignored? Because they're black. Because they don't matter. And that's a terrible situation. And this reminds me of the situation that happened in Flint, Michigan, which was also a black community. And they had lead in their water for years. And they had high percentages of cancer and other terrible diseases that came from drinking the water. And it took a long, long time for them to straighten that situation. And the reason it took a long, long time was because the community was also, like Jackson, a 90% black community. So when we look around this country and we see the politicians who are running this nation kowtowing to those people who would perpetuate situations like this and who threaten the government when it calls them out, that's pretty bad. There's no question that a combination of devastating events took place in order for the water supply in Jackson, Mississippi to be so badly disrupted. This is a combination of aging infrastructure and climate change. And that's what led to the collapse of the Jackson water supplies. But this didn't happen overnight. This took over 2.5 years to reach this point. Back in 2020, they had a freeze, and the water supply was shut down for 6 weeks. But the water plant has been aging. I don't know how old it is. But the state legislature has chosen to ignore the aging infrastructure of the Jackson water supply. But they haven't chosen to ignore the water supplies of what I will call the lighter communities. No, it's Jackson that's been ignored, and the situation has gotten worse. So for over the last 2 years, the people in Jackson have had to boil their water. They've had to boil their water so it becomes drinkable. And they've gotten used to it. They have gotten used to it. But I ask you, should any American citizen have to boil water? Obviously, the legislature, the government of Mississippi, thinks it's okay for a segment of their society to boil water. I will bet you dollars to donuts that the whites in Mississippi are not boiling water every day. It must be very frustrating to look around you if you live in Jackson, Mississippi, and see all the other towns living perfectly normal lives with plenty of water to drink. And why don't those towns show up to help the people in Jackson? So this is the ultimate racist thing that's going on in this country. And yet we have many who deny the fact of our racism. So this situation really should not exist. Because when Joe Biden got the landmark infrastructure bill passed, there was money earmarked for disadvantaged and underserved communities like Jackson. But the funding goes to state legislatures, and they don't do what is right. So they just look around at the politics in their local communities, and they prioritize projects for their constituents, the ones with the money and the ones who can vote a lot, instead of focusing on fixing the systemic issues that really exist in states. So yes, we have states' rights, but the people who run the states suck. And this is a perfect example of how badly this country is divided. When you can give them money to fix infrastructure and they pour that money into communities that really don't need it. And I have been looking also to see what Black Lives Matter has said about this situation. And I don't find anything anywhere where Black Lives Matter is stepping up and defending and fighting for the rights of black communities in this country. So that bothers me. It bothers me when we have movements like BDS and we don't have a movement to help our own citizens, the underserved, the minorities of this country, those who live on reservations, those who live in black neighborhoods, are getting short shrift in what used to be the greatest country. So if you think that something is really going to be done about this situation, think again, because this situation won't change until those of a different color or a different stature become effective. Poor people, poor black people in this country are not being well served by their state government. So I leave you with this thought that you can't brush your teeth in the morning. You can't shower with your mouth open. You can't look at the water and drink it safely. How about that? How about that lifestyle in our great country? Have a great day. Bye.